Hi, Dr. Debi Silber. I just had the most amazing conversation with Kim Sorrell. You're going to want to tune in if you've been betrayed, if you know someone who's been betrayed, if you want to heal from it, you're going to learn so much by tuning into this amazing episode.
Welcome to the show. I'm so happy that you're here. You're going to be so happy that you're here. I am Kim Sorrell. I'm a speaker. I'm an author. I get to do a lot of fun things in life, but my favorite by far is meeting people. And I get to meet some of the most incredible people that are on the face of this earth. Today, you get to meet Dr. Debi Silber, who is amazing. Like what she has been through, you'll be floored because her reaction to what she's been through led her down this path that is now helping so many people and in a very unique way. Like this isn't a topic that you hear very often. So stay with us because you're going to love this. Debi, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, me too. I've been looking forward to this because it really is. It's not a topic many people talk about. It's not something that people know how to get through. And you have come up with a way of getting through it. But first, I want people to know you. And so I want to hear about 8-year-old Debi.
8-year-old Debi. Oh my gosh. Just, I was just a very sensitive empath, animal loving, free spirit, just a good kid. Really not much to talk about, but very sensitive, always sensitive. And I didn't know I was a highly sensitive empath until much later in life.
Really? Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there's so much about ourselves that we really don't know or can't put a name on because it's just us. So we think, well, this is how people are and this is how people think. And then later on when you find out, well, maybe I think a little different or feel a little different about people, it can be pretty kind of eye-opening.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I always was, I always thought it was me because I'm like, why is it that I really got upset when someone swatted the fly or watched the bully get bullied, and I was always the one running for the hall monitor, and why was it that I had a hard time in Halloween haunted houses and scary movies, and I had no idea who I was and why I was so sensitive to it. And I just thought, okay, what's wrong with me? And you kind of grow up with these ideas and think that I must be crazy. Why am I having such a hard time with it? Even I grew up in New York, not New York City, but Long Island, and I'd go into the city and I would just feel so anxious and stressed, and I'm like, what's the matter with me? Why can't I just be like everybody else? Well, because I'm not.
And that's a good thing, right? I mean, if we were all the same, like sometimes I think, man, if we were a world full of Kims, there would be anarchy. I don't even know what would happen, but it wouldn't be good. Like, it's so wonderful that we are all different and that then you treasure your difference instead of hate your difference, right?
Well, I will tell you, one thing I have always lived this way and it has served, but here's where I do wish there were a few more Debbies, because one rule I have always is if it's going to hurt someone, don't do it. And I assume that excuse me, that others live that same way. And I'm always shocked and amazed that that's not the case. And it's probably prevented me from hurting a billion people.
Isn't that funny? Yeah, because I think the same way. Like, why would you do something to hurt anybody? Like why would you do that? I don't get it either. But yeah, people do. And so yeah, we do. We need a lot more Debbies for sure. So life brought some twists and turns. You went to high school, went to college, you did your thing, and then tell me about meeting your husband and what life brought after that.
Yeah, so we actually met in 1984, and I mean, we just fell in love, and it was just one of those magical, amazing things. And life was really good. I had a problem with my family, and the family of of origin, and kind of knew that one day it was going to be the family I create versus the family I came from. It was just this knowing. And then I did have a pretty profound betrayal from them, which was really earth shattering, heartbreaking. Anybody who's felt any sort of betrayal from family, you know what I'm talking about. And then it happened a few years later. I thought I did what I needed to do to heal from that. It happened a few years later. This time it was my husband. So that was the deal breaker. Got him out of the house, looked at the two experiences, thinking, okay, well, what's similar to these two? Me, but what else? And I realized I never took my own needs seriously. I was never on my own sort of to-do list, and I'm one of those people that believes if nothing changes, nothing changes. So here I was, 4 kids, 6 dogs, a thriving business. And I decided to enroll in a PhD program. And I did that because I usually kind of learn my way through things. If I'm struggling with something, I'll get a certification in it. I'll read about it. I'll whatever. But there was nothing that I could find, no book, no program, nothing. So I decided to study it at the PhD level. I had no idea what I was doing. But then it was time to do a study. So I studied betrayal, truly to help me heal and to just be there in the way I needed to for my kids, my clients. That study led to 3 groundbreaking discoveries, which changed my health, my family, my work, my life.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So good. And so good where you are today, and you're glowing and smiling. And obviously, we're not so much glowing and smiling for a few years.
Oh, yeah.
And you talked about betrayal by your family.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Those wounds are some of the deepest wounds that are awfully hard to unpack, right?
Mhm.
And you just think family should be there for each other. I came from a real competitive family. And so
Mhm.
it was always, I betcha I can beat you today. I betcha I can, I betcha, all the time we're
Yep.
racing each other, we're doing everything. And I heard Maury Povich in an interview one time, and he was just talking about his family. They were asking about his family. And he said, we were raised that Poviches root for Poviches. And I
Mm.
went, what? Families root for each other? Really? They don't just compete with each other, they root for each other. Oh my word, that's the way it should be. But unfortunately, it's not always the way it is. And
Right.
so, yeah, family betrayal, man. Yeah.
I will tell you, as painful as it was, the beauty of these experiences, and I'm happy to share, just what it led to. But one of the things that it led to, as far as the family betrayal is, I have 4 kids, and now with their 4 partners, and I'll tell you, it was such an intentional thing to break every chain that did not serve.
Mm.
And my kids now, I mean, now they're, here they are as adults, best friends, looking for each other, confiding in each other. And, that's where I kind of silently high five myself. And I'm like, okay, job well done. And
Yeah, yeah, that's so good. That is so good. Yeah. I love that too, that my kids actually talk to each other, want to be together,
yeah,
that their spouses are best friends too. And yeah, I mean, what a gift that is. And I don't know, it's just such a wonderful feeling to all be together and know that they all love each other. I mean, it's fun. I don't see my brothers like that. Hardly ever do I see my brothers. So came from a very different situation than what I wanted to develop. And so it's possible to break the chains,
hmm,
right?
definitely.
And I think sometimes people struggle with that. Like, this is the way was raised. And so this is what I know. So this is what I'm going to do. So how did you, well, like, did you always know when I have a family, I'm going to do things differently? How do you break those chains?
You know, I remember, and this is going to sound so crazy, but I remember being pregnant with my first, and I, it was like I said, it was very intentional. And I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to act as if I'm dyslexic because things are sort of, jumbled up a little bit. And I'm going to act as if I'm dyslexic. So before I just regurgitate something that, let's say this child is going to do something, and I would react and respond in the way that I was conditioned, that I was taught, I'm going to act as if the whole message is jumbled, unjumble it before it comes out of my mouth.
Ah,
It was
interesting.
it worked. It worked. Another thing I did was if I said or did anything that anyone didn't like, communication was cut off. It's
Mhm.
absolutely stonewalled. I mean, that's like emotional death for a kid. And I said, I will never do that ever. And I'll never forget, there was one experience with one of my kids. And this one child was going bananas, and I was sticking around for it and really being, I don't want to say abusive, but coming at me as if there was not a worry in the world that I would ever leave her or stonewall her. And I remember during her rant, all of a sudden I started laughing, and I was like, wow, there is nothing you can say or do that would have me not love you. Go me. And I walked out.
So good. That's so good.
And I realized this is what it looks like to break those chains. But again, deliberate and intentional. But my husband's betrayal, that one threw me for a loop like nothing I've ever experienced in my life. And I've been in the ICU for 11 days. I've lost loved ones. Nothing got me like that.
Oh my gosh, it's just got to break you in two, just break your heart.
Oh yeah.
I, yeah, yeah.
It creates a psychological earthquake where life is compartmentalized into two camps: before it happened and after it happened. And again, I lived by this one simple rule: if it's going to hurt, don't do it. So imagine something like betrayal. Betrayal is hard for anybody, but for a highly sensitive empath with integrity as my highest value, it was the chakra of my life. And that's why it wasn't even enough to heal. I remember going through the study and saying, I have no idea how I'm going to do this. But if I can heal from this, I'm taking everybody with me. Like, it
Mm,
was a knowing. It was
yeah.
just a knowing. There was the injustice for me was so great that it wasn't enough just to heal.
Mm, wow. Wow. That's pretty powerful. I know women, I have friends who have suffered betrayal, right? Like their husbands have cheated, and the devastation. I never lived through it, so I can't say I know what it feels like. I can imagine,
Mhm.
but I don't know. But holy cow, yeah, because that's your person.
Yeah.
That's your person who till death do us part. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden, it's like, what's going on? Like, it's got to be an earthquake. It's got to shake every area of your life. And then you have kids. So, how do
Mhm.
you navigate that with
Mhm.
kids? How do you navigate that with even with family and friends? And, because I don't know, like, it can be like, was there any internal, did you ever conflict? Did you ever have that kind of conflict where it was like, did I do something wrong that he did this?
It's so common. And here's the thing. I mean, you said so many great things. I want to dive into each one of them. The first thing is, this was the person who gave you a sense of safety and security. These are the people, your family, your partner. So when this is the person and these are the people to shatter that very sense of safety and security, it's absolutely traumatizing. When the person you trust the most proves untrustworthy, who do you trust? When the one you run to when other people are causing the harm is the one causing the harm, where do you go? You see? So
Mm,
it shatters. It shatters your body, your mind, your heart in every single way. And the good news is you can rebuild from all of it, which I definitely want to get into. But you do question yourself because, it's interesting because if someone chooses alcohol or chooses drugs or chooses even gambling or something, you don't take it personally. When they choose another, you do. And
mm,
here's the thing, and this is what I want to make sure everybody knows, because within the PBT Institute, we have a program for the betrayer as well. So I meet with them and I speak with them and I know what's going on in their heart, in their mind. And I can say with 100% conviction, it has nothing to do with you,
mm,
which is one of the hardest things to accept in the beginning because we think, what was I not enough? Was I not pretty enough, thin enough, young enough, period. It has nothing to do with you. And I will tell you, we also have a lot of women who are the betrayers.
mm,
And the men struggle just as much. It has nothing to do with them. This is someone else's unhealed trauma, lack, sense of entitlement, whatever it is. Not that it excuses any of it, but it has nothing to do with you.
Oh my gosh, those words are so strong and so profound. And people need to hear that, that it has nothing to do with you. I was married for 29 years before my husband passed away. And during that time, people would go, well, how do you know he's not cheating? And I'm like, we're too busy. Like, when would he ever have time? But then I've heard other people kind of say the same thing. I know where he is all the time, and then find out that there's something going on,
Yeah.
which,
It,
yeah.
it's such a shock because well, betrayal, I define it as the breaking of a spoken or unspoken rule. And every relationship has them. And here it is, without your awareness or consent, someone chooses to break that rule. It's not people say it's a mistake. No, it's not. It's a decision. And it's one of the most heartbreaking decisions you can ever make. And that's why that was actually the first discovery, that I had a feeling betrayal was a different type of trauma. I'd been through, as I said, death of a loved one. I'd been through disease, and excuse me, and I was like, betrayal feels different. I didn't want to assume it was the same for all my study participants, so I asked them, if you've been through other traumas besides betrayal, does it feel different for you? Unanimously, they said it's so different. Here's why: because it feels so intentional, we take it so personally. So the entire self gets shattered. Rejection, abandonment, belonging, confidence, worthiness, trust. They're shattered. Like when you lose someone you love, you grieve, you're sad, you mourn the loss, right?
Mhm.
Life will never be the same, but you don't necessarily question the relationship. You don't question your ability to trust. You don't question your sanity. With betrayal, you do. So that betrayal is a different type of trauma that needs its own way to heal. That was the first discovery.
Wow. Wow. That's so interesting. And it's interesting to me too that you looked for the books, you looked for the answers, like somebody certainly knows the answer to all this,
Mhm.
and could not find it anywhere.
Yeah.
And yet it's something that's existed since mankind has existed, right? But nobody has really taken a deep dive into it to figure out what it is. And yeah, I mean, everything is different, right? Like losing your spouse, divorcing your spouse, both painful. You grieve both,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
they're different,
Yeah.
different traumas, right? And so yeah, there's all these different external traumas, that are happening to other people, like traumatizing you and
Mhm.
whatever. But to know that this is different
Mhm.
than the others, opens everything up, right? I mean, I had to, when you discover that, I had to be like, well, gosh, now I can do something about it. Like now I can
That's
figure this out.
exactly. And that was just the first discovery of the three. I mean, I had no idea any of this was going to happen. But just to back up a little bit, when you're doing a PhD dissertation, you have to first exhaust all of the literature to find what's missing, right? To find what is it that still needs to be studied. And I was reading hundreds and hundreds of research papers and studies, and there was nothing about the deep lived experience, physically, mentally, emotionally, of what someone feels on every level after that experience with betrayal. So that's what I wanted to study, because I was like, wow, if we just study this at the deepest level, what can we find? And then what was so interesting was, whatever the study was showing as I was doing the research, I would try. I was
Mm,
like, let's just see. I'm gonna be the guinea pig here, and that was one of the reasons why I healed as quickly as I did. And I'm happy to share the other two, so you can sort
yeah,
of,
of
yeah.
course. Yeah.
So the second discovery was, there's actually a collection of symptoms, physical, mental, and emotional, so common to betrayal, it's now known as post-betrayal syndrome.
Oh,
And we've had over 100,000 people take our post-betrayal syndrome quiz to see to what extent they're struggling. First of all, we've all heard time heals all wounds. I have the proof. When it comes to betrayal, that's not true.
mm,
We have a question in the quiz that says, is there anything else you'd like to share? And people write things like, my betrayal happened 35 years ago. I'm unwilling to trust. I'll never trust again. My betrayal happened 40 years ago. I can still feel the hate. So we know when you can't count on time. You can't count on a new relationship even to heal it. Healing it is the only way to heal it. And I'm happy to share some of the stats so you'll see what it looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Uh, it's so interesting to me because, yeah, to say 40 years later, still feeling the pain, right? Still feeling the anger, the hatred, whatever it happens to be. And I would think that if you're going to talk about what happened with you, which is beautiful and wonderful, but there's so many people that then are living this 40 years later.
Oh yeah.
So if they've in between time tried to have a new relationship, I can't imagine it being as healthy and wonderful as it could be if you're hanging on to that betrayal, that trauma.
Exactly. All
Yeah.
you're doing is recreating. The face has changed, but it's the same thing. You'll see that very clearly in the third discovery. But just to
Yeah.
show you what it looks like with how time doesn't heal it, here's an example. We had a woman in our community in her mid 80s, and she had a 70 plus year digestive issue. 45% of everybody betrayed has a gut issue of some kind: Crohn's, IBS, diverticulitis, you name it. She had a betrayal. She was adopted. They didn't tell her. She found out later in life, kind of thing. So 70 plus years, she had a digestive issue. 2 weeks in our program, she healed from a 70 plus year digestive issue. That's what happens when you see this is a betrayal. And when you heal the actual root cause, because you can go to the most well meaning, amazing digestive experts. I'm friends with a lot of them. And if you don't know there's an unhealed betrayal at the root of it, they'll give you a beautiful protocol. You're just hacking away at the leaves. You're not getting to the root. So you want me to share some of the stats?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Please.
So imagine over 100,000 people, men, women, just about every country is represented. As much as you're going to hear these symptoms, I want you to hear these numbers. 78% constantly revisit their experience. 81% feel a loss of personal power. 94% deal with painful triggers. And if you've ever had a trigger, they're debilitating. The most common physical symptoms: 71% have low energy, 68% have sleep issues, 63% have extreme fatigue. You sleep all night, you wake up, you're exhausted, your adrenals have tanked. As I mentioned, 45% have digestive issues, 47% have weight changes. So in the beginning, you can't hold food down. Later on, you may be emotionally eating, using food for comfort, gaining weight. Mentally, 78% are overwhelmed, 64% are in shock, 62% can't concentrate. So just imagine that. You can't concentrate, you're exhausted. Let's say you have a gut issue, you have to go to work, you have to raise your kids. That's not even emotionally. Emotionally, 88% experience extreme sadness. 83% are very angry. And you're bouncing back and forth between those two all day long, which is exhausting. Just a few more. 79% are stressed. This one killed me. 84% have an inability to trust. Think about what an inability to trust will do to your health, your work, your relationships. We could talk about that. 67% prevent themselves from forming deep relationships because they're afraid of being hurt again. The big wall goes up. 82% find it hard to move forward. 90% want to move forward, but they don't know how.
Wow. Wow. Those statistics are tough to hear. Like, they're huge.
You
I
know, it's
mean,
even, yeah.
yeah, was it shocking to you? Like, as you're getting results, were you surprised by the big numbers?
What shocked me even more was, as high as these numbers are, you didn't hear me say 20%, 30%. These numbers are super high. They're also not representative of a recent betrayal. This could be from the family member who hurt you when you were a kid. This could be from the partner who broke your heart in high school. So think about this. That person may not know, care, remember. They may not even be alive. And here we are, decades later, with these symptoms, just like that woman I spoke about, because of something left unhealed from decades ago. The
Mhm.
good news is you can heal from all of it. That was the third discovery.
Yeah. Yeah, which is great news for everyone. And not only can you heal from it because you've discovered the path and are helping so many people. So knowing that you can heal from it, knowing that
Mhm,
you need to heal from it,
mhm,
that it's life transformational to
mhm.
heal from it, and and there's a way. All those things together are like, wow, that's kind of an awakening because you're right. So many people, there's been betrayal somewhere in your life,
Mhm.
whatever that is, and there are regrets that you have or things that were said or whatever it is that sometimes someone will say, oh my gosh, I feel so bad that in high school this happened. And I'm like, I don't even remember that. Like,
Yeah.
right. Like the person on the other end, you're not hurting them by hurting yourself. It's not changing their or affecting their life in any way.
That's
And
it.
they probably don't even know that you're feeling like you feel. So yeah, yeah, go on. Go on. Give us
Yeah.
more. This is so good.
So the third discovery for me, this was the most exciting. And what we learned was that while we can stay stuck for years, decades, a lifetime, and most people do, if we're going to fully heal, and by fully heal, I mean those symptoms of post betrayal syndrome that I just shared, to that completely rebuilt place where you rebuild your life, you rebuild yourself in which is a space called post betrayal transformation, PBT. We're going to move through 5 proven predictable stages. And what's even more exciting about that is we now know what happens physically, mentally, and emotionally at each one of those stages. And we know what it takes to move from one stage to the next. Healing is entirely predictable. And I'm happy to
Wow.
share the stages if you want to hear them.
Yeah, please. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. I never would have thought that it's entirely predictable,
Yeah, I
right?
didn't either until the stages showed up, and I'll never forget my study chair as I was doing the study. I kept handing over the research, handing it over, and she responded, and she goes, "Debbie, I believe you've discovered a process here." And in like the nerdiest way, I think I was so excited because here was the roadmap. Here was the predictable roadmap that was just now laid out, where it's like, oh, you mean to tell me if you do this thing, you move to this next stage, and if you do this, you move here, and it was proven, and now the research backed it up. So happy to share it.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so stage one, this is actually before it happens. And if you can imagine 4 legs of a table, the 4 legs being physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, what I saw with everybody, me too, was a heavy lean on the physical and mental thinking and doing. We're so good at that, right?
Hmm.
Kind of neglecting or ignoring the emotional and the spiritual. Well, if we only have 2 legs of a table, that table, it's easy for it to top over. That's us. Stage 2, shock, trauma, D-Day, discovery day. This is the scariest of the stages. This is where you get the news, and it's as if someone takes a mask off and reveals who they've been. And it's a shock. What happens is you ignite the stress response. You're now headed for every single stress related symptom, illness, condition, disease. Your mind is in a complete state of chaos. You cannot understand what you just learned, and your worldview has just been shattered. Your worldview is your mental model, the rules that govern us, that prevent chaos. You could trust this person's safe. Don't go there, right? These are the rules. And in one earth shattering moment, every rule you've been following is no longer. The bottom has bottomed out on you, and a new bottom hasn't been formed yet. This is terrifying. I remember a woman in my study saying, you know what it feels like? It feels like every emotion you can imagine being punched in the gut and losing a child in a crowd all at the same time.
Mm.
It's so disorienting and just so traumatizing. So the bottom bottoms out on you. So what do? You grab hold of anything or anyone in order to stay safe. That's stage 3. Survival instincts emerge. This is the most practical out of all of the stages. If you can't help me, get out of my way. How do I survive this experience? Who can I trust? Where do I go? Here's the trap though. Stage 3, by far, is the most common place we get stuck. Here's why.
Mm.
Once we've figured out how to survive our experience, because it feels so much better than the shock and trauma we just came from, we think it's good. And because we don't know there's anywhere else to go, we don't know there's a stage 4, we don't know there's a stage 5. We plant roots here. We're not supposed to, but we don't know that. And four things start to happen. The first thing is we start getting all of those small self benefits. We get to be right. We get our story. We love our story. We get a target for our anger. We get someone to blame. We get sympathy from everyone we tell our story to. And on some level, we're not getting much else. So we take it as good, right? So we plant deeper roots. And because we're here longer than we should be, now the mind starts doing things like maybe it's you. Maybe you're not that great. Maybe this, maybe that. So we plant deeper roots. Now, because we're here longer than we should be, and these are the thoughts we're having, this is the energy we start putting out. And like energy attracts like energy. So now we start, this is exactly, you mentioned this before. Here's where we start attracting new relationships, experiences that are the same, that confirm, yep, this is where we belong. Here's also where we'll join some kind of lame support group and we will actually sabotage our healing because we found our people. Here's where we'll go to therapy. But if that therapist is not highly skilled in betrayal, you'll feel heard, validated, understood, solidifying your spot in stage 3, right?
Wow.
Gluing
Yeah.
yourself there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's where we're so afraid of the familiar known and where we're at, but we're so discouraged that there's anything else. So it gets worse, but I'll get you out of here. So now we start numbing, avoiding, distracting. So right here, we start using food, drugs, alcohol, anything to numb, avoid, and distract. So we do it for a day, a week, a month. Now it's a habit, a year, 10 years, 20 years. Kim, I can see someone 20 years later and say, that emotional eating you're doing, that drinking you're doing, do you think that has anything to do with your betrayal? And they'll look at me like I'm crazy. They'll say it happened 20 years ago. Do you see? All they did was lock themselves in stage 3 and stay there.
Yeah. What a place to get stuck.
And that's
But
what
but
you
but I can see where you would think that that's the place you belong. You found your people. You can relate to others that have gone through the same. You
Mhm.
gravitate toward each other, right? You share your misery stories. Everybody feels bad for you because, oh my gosh, you poor thing. You know
Mhm.
what's life going to bring and whatever. And yeah, yeah, I can see how people get stuck. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And what you're doing now, you're managing your and suppressing symptoms of post betrayal syndrome. You're fine, right? But there's so much more than fine. And you know what it's like? And I want to make sure I get you to stage 4 and 5. It's almost like imagine two friends and they're 30 pounds overweight. Like they're good, right? They're okay. They put themselves together. They feel good, whatever. It doesn't stop them from doing anything they want to do. And then one day, one friend says, I'm kind of done with the extra weight. I just want to feel really good already. I want to wear clothes I want to wear versus what fits. I want to live the life of someone who's feeling super good in their body. So she decides to lose the 30 pounds and she feels great. And now here she is 30 pounds down and she says to the other friend, come on, it's so good here. But the other friend's like, no, I'm fine. I'm okay. And the truth is she is, but she has no idea how much better it is with right as
Right.
the her friend is. And if people knew what stage 4 or 5 felt like, they wouldn't waste a minute in stage 3. Can I get you out of stage 3 and into 4 and
Yeah.
5?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So if you're willing, willingness is a big word right here. If you're willing to grieve more than the loss, do a few things, you move to stage 4. Stage 4 is finding and adjusting to a new normal. So here's where you acknowledge, I can't undo what happened, but I control what I do with it. Just in that decision, you're turning down the stress response. You're not healing just yet, but at least you stopped the massive damage that was happening in stages 2 and stage 3. Stage 4 feels like if you've ever moved. If you've ever moved to a new house, office, condo, whatever, all your stuff's not there. It's not quite cozy yet, but it's this sort of hopeful excitement like, yeah, we got this, right? But think about it. If you were to move, you don't take everything with you. You don't take the things that don't represent the version of you you're now ready to become. And what I found was there's this one spot as people move from stage 3 to stage 4. If your friends weren't there for you, you don't take them with you. That support group, you're done. That therapist who just keeps rehashing the story with you, you're done. And people ask me all the time, Dr. Debi, is it me? Well, I've had these people in my life for so long. Yes, it is. You're undergoing a transformation. And if they don't rise, they don't come along. So it's not that it's a lonely space, but it's a very personal space in stage 4. Anyway, when we make this cozy, we make it kind of mentally home, we move into the 5th most beautiful stage. And this is healing, rebirth, and a new worldview. The body starts to heal. Self-love, self-care, eating well, exercise. We didn't have the bandwidth for that earlier. Now we do. The mind is healing. We're making all kinds of new rules, new boundaries based on the road we just traveled. And we have a whole new worldview based on everything we see so clearly now. And the 4 legs of that table, in the beginning, it was all about the physical and the mental. By this point, we're really solidly grounded because we're focused on the emotional and the spiritual too. Those are the 5 stages.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Oh my word. I would imagine that getting to stage 4,
Mm-hmm.
how is it for people getting to stage 4?
It's so.
I would imagine being in stage 4 is fabulous,
Mm-hmm.
but the getting out of 3 and into 4,
Yeah.
right?
It's the hardest one. Stage 3 is the hardest stage to leave because it feels so comfortable in such a bad way, right?
Mm.
So it's so, you know, stage 4 that's my favorite. You're not supposed to have a favorite kid, right? But I have a favorite stage, and it's stage 4 because here's where you finally realize your value and your worth, and you realize that, wow, this cracked me wide open, and I get to decide who I want to become now. So, I said before about deliberately and intentionally recreating yourself. That's what you're doing. And when you're moving into stage 4, you're taking on everything. You're taking all the parts with you that you love, and you leave behind everything that no longer serves. So when you have a thought, like let's say someone is doing something or saying something, and the old you would have let it slide because I don't want to create any confrontation or whatever. No, this new version of you acts differently, reacts differently. I'll share it in a sort of a silly example. One of the things I started doing in my stage 4, I realized, I'm so harsh and critical on myself. I don't want to do that anymore. Every time I was always such a driver, do more and criticize myself. It was horrible. And I realized, I'm sort of done with that. Like, for example, I get lost wherever I go. It's just what happens. I just know it's coming. So I have to leave extra time. Anyway, I decided I just don't want to be so critical on myself. So now I decided that I'm going to keep doing those same things, most likely. But instead of me calling myself all these names, I'm going to do those same things, and it's simply going to be adorable. So I do these same things all the time, and now it's just adorable. And it's just so funny how, when you realize I truly am recreating myself. And there's something about the crash and burn of the old where you get to rebuild the new. And before we started recording, you mentioned my TEDx talks, and I talk about in one of them about the house, right? And I
Mm.
mentioned the house. And here's the difference between resilience and transformation. Resilience is restoring, bringing back to, and you need that for your everyday. But using this example of a house, imagine an old house, and imagine the old house needs a new paint job, and you paint. That would be resilience. You're bringing it back. Or it needs a new roof. You get a new roof. That's resilience. Here's trauma and transformation. A tornado comes along and levels the house. A new paint job isn't going to fix it. A new roof's not going to fix it, right? Now, you have every right to stand there at the lot where your house once stood and say, this is the most terrible, awful thing that's ever happened. You'd be right. And you can call everybody over and say, look at this. Isn't this horrible? Isn't this terrible? And it's true, right?
Mm.
You have every right to mourn the loss of your house until your last breath. However, if you choose to rebuild the house, you don't have to, but if you choose to, why would you build the same one? There's nothing
Mhm.
there. That's the opportunity. Stage 4, stage 5 is rebuilding something totally new, totally and completely new. That's trauma well served.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Uh, I love that because it opens so many doors,
Mhm.
right? Like I often think, yeah, I used to think that, well, that was 7 Kims ago, or that was
Mhm.
12 Kims ago, right? Like the freedom to transform, grow, give yourself the grace to do that, and the space to do that is amazing. But that you can is the most amazing thing, right?
It's the willingness to be uncomfortable. There's a saying that I've been using in my 33 plus years of my business, and it really goes for, I can't find a topic it doesn't work for. And it's this: hard now, easy later. Easy now, hard later. Take your pick, it's going to be one of those two. When it comes to rebuilding from betrayal, it is only hard now, easy later. But what's so interesting to me is people don't like change, and they don't like the hard part. So they go the easy now only to leave them with the hard later. And that's actually, there were three groups in the study who did not heal. And you'll see the easy now, hard later. One group was the group, they refused to give up their story, right? They had their story, they were sticking with it. Easy now, the story that they had grown comfortable and familiar with. The second group, this was the group that was numbing, avoiding, distracting. They ran to the doctor who put them on a mood stabilizer or anti anxiety medication. They started drinking, emotionally eating, scrolling, whatever. Easy now, right? It made the day easier to get through, not without a price. They didn't heal. And the third group, this was the group where the betrayer had very little consequences,
Mm.
whether it was out of financial fear, religious reasons, not wanting to break up a family. They did all they could just to look the other way. And, it's so interesting because I saw two things with this group. Number one, a further deterioration of the relationship. And two, this group by far was the most physically sick.
Wow.
Your broken
Wow.
heart can't handle that. But they were so afraid of the hard now, the crash and burn of the old. That's the only way you birth the new. And just to close the loop on my story, rebuilding is always a choice. Whether you rebuild yourself and move along, that's what I did with my family. It wasn't an option to rebuild with them. Or if the situation lends itself, if you're willing, if you want to, you rebuild something from the ground up new, completely with the person who hurt you. And not long ago, as two completely transformed people, my husband and I married each other again. New rings, new vows, new dress, and our 4 kids is our bridal party. Betrayal will show you who someone truly is. It also can wake them up to who they temporarily became. Not that you need to do anything with it, but the potential is there if you want to.
Mm. Which is such a beautiful story. I love your story. Love it, love it. Because yeah, I mean, probably everybody's known people that have gone through
Mhm.
marriage betrayal,
Mhm.
a friend, a relative, or whoever.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking of people that I know. Most marriages, people walk away never to return again. And I always think, man, sometimes it is just this moment that is a lapse of judgment, something from their past, like you were saying, like who knows why they're doing it for whatever reason. But you're together for 30 years, and then there's this little tiny space where things were really crappy because of holy cow. But if
Mhm.
you can figure out, then who are you? Then who is he? Then who do you want to be? Is he going to be different? Are you going to be different? What does the future hold? I just think it's beautiful because it's and the way you approach it too, it's not like just, this flippant, well, I forgave him, so we got married. No, you
Mhm.
did the hard work. You did the stuff to make sure that going in a second time, making the decision to, opening yourself up to,
Mhm.
giving that space to be able to make that happen, that that you were able to go in as a different person.
And that's why we have two separate programs, one for the betrayed, one for the betrayer. We have so many couples, excuse me, going through those programs, and they're always like, can we do it together? No, you can't. You have your own very, very different issues. that need to be worked on. The betrayed needs to move through the 5 stages. And the betrayer needs to know what in the world led them to make those choices. And then they need to understand what betrayal does so they can see the deep impact of what they've done. They need to learn empathy. They need to also learn, if they have the opportunity, how to be there for their partner in the way that they need. Once they do that separately, I mean, what we see on the other end of those programs is magical. But we have so many people also who come in from couples counseling, again, well-meaning counselors, but if they don't understand the magnitude of betrayal, very often they say, you need to communicate better. I mean, if you're the betrayed and you hear something like that, you feel so misunderstood. You feel so unheard because, and then also, let's say the betrayer, has the crocodile tears and is very charismatic. If the counselor doesn't know what's going on there, they can minimize it. This cannot be minimized. So they come in, to our community and they're so angry because they say they wasted so much time. And no, you didn't. You realize what doesn't work and now move through the stages and heal.
Right, right, right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Such important work. This is also important. And what do you say to somebody who's at the beginning? They're recently found out that they've been betrayed. And, because, I would think with that there'd be some similarities with other types of grieving, right? Because there's grief has got to be part of it.
It is. It's interesting because grieving, it's so funny how it happens. Not funny, but amazing how it happens. Actually, as people enter stage 4, we see grieving a lot. And they always say it. I thought I was doing so well, and all of a sudden I'm so sad. What's happening? Is that a setback? No, it's not. You finally realize that old you, that old relationship is dead and gone. And now you're rebuilding something new. So it is grieving, but it's a kind of grieving where you're not in it now, you're looking at it. You see it for what it is. You see it clearly and you're moving forward from it. That's beautiful. It's a very important part of healing.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. This is so good, man. I have so many questions for you because this is so good and so important for people to hear. And it's not just about a wife or husband's betrayal. This is about betrayal, period. Right. And so there are so many people, I'm sure there are so many people that have had betrayal in their life. I mean, I don't know what that statistic is, but a lot, and are probably stuck in 3 and have no idea that there's a 4. And what a beautiful gift you're giving the world to let people know you get to decide. I did this year of figuring out the true meaning of love. I did this like eat, pray, love year. I was in Haiti most of the time when I was doing it. And one of the things that I figured out, I used 1 Corinthians 13. If you're familiar, love is patient, love is kind, does not envy. It took 1 word or phrase a month. And when I got to love keeps no record of wrongs, I dreaded it. Like I thought, well, you might forgive, but you don't forget. Right. And what I discovered that means that love keeps no record of wrongs is that we're in charge of the narrative. We're in charge of the narrative. So how we allow things to enter our life, how we allow things to be taken in, like adorable. I love that. They're adorable. You shift the narrative and everything changes. Right.
Absolutely. I can tell you, as the founder of National Forgiveness Day, celebrated every year on September 1st, I'm a big believer in forgiveness, but forgiveness for your sake, for what it gives you, for the freedom you feel when you release the power that pain has over you.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Go National Forgiveness Day. September 1, everybody celebrate, forgive on that day. Don't hang on to stuff. And, we mentioned it earlier that when you do hang on and you let bitterness come in and resentment and all the stuff that piles on it, and then you're validated by your friends, you're right. that guy's
Mhm.
a jerk, like you're right. You just have been stabbing. Oh, why you, all the stuff that just makes it bigger, bigger, bigger and amplifies everything. You're doing such damage to yourself. I mean,
Yeah,
that
exactly.
is hurting you. I don't know that it's like, like how do you respond as a friend? Like because certainly at the beginning, it's like,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, I'm so sorry this happened. Oh my gosh, he's a jerk. Like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, this isn't all this stuff, right?
Mhm.
But then where do you go as a friend to really be a friend?
I love that question because I mean, I'll never forget someone saying to me, Debbie, and trying to be supportive. Yeah, I am so glad I'm not you. I mean, like, what in the world kind of thing is that to say?
No kidding.
Okay, and that was coming from a place of well-meaning, I imagine. So you just, if you haven't been through it, don't judge, don't assume you know what it feels like. Be there for your friend in the way that they need. Don't act like it's contagious. I mean, I remember friends who they didn't know what to say, so they didn't say anything. You need support. You really, really do. Now, in my case, my husband was the one, he called up every one of my friends and apologized for being such a jerk to their friend. And, he was the one who told our kids too. So my situation is maybe very different, but just your friends need to be a good friend. Show up for your friend, even if you're stumbling all over your words and you say, I have no idea what to say to you or how to be here for you, but I'm here. That's good. Just do
Mhm.
that.
Yeah, that is good. And then what if you are seeing that your friend is stuck in three? Is there anything you can do? Or is it just anything you can say, anything to help them at that point?
I'm a big believer in awareness, and you can't change what you're unaware of. So that's why my mission is to get these 5 stages into as many people's ears and eyes as possible, so they know, oh my gosh, there's a stage 4. What the heck am I doing in stage 3? So awareness is the key. So if you're a friend of someone and who's in stage 3 and they may be very resistant, that's one of the classic signs of being in stage 3, where they also have repeat betrayals. They keep the big wall up. They're just medicating, suppressing their symptoms. They're miserable, but they're just managing. Just subtly let them know, did you ever hear of the 5 stages from betrayal to breakthrough?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And see what
Yeah.
see what happens.
Yeah. And if you're a real friend, you will, right?
Yeah.
Because we all need those people in our life that'll speak truth to us. And so, yeah, you want to see your friend get out of it, man. Uh, Debbie's going to tell you where to go and what to tell them. So that's so great. And speaking of which, you have some incredible resources on your website. So it's not just going to a website and giving your information like so many people do. You have free resources
Mhm.
to help people understand where they are, help people understand everything much better. So tell us your website is.
Yeah, the PBT is in post betrayal transformation, the pbtinstitute.com. We have quizzes to see to what extent you're struggling with symptoms of post betrayal syndrome. You can find out what stage you're in. And we have our signature program, Reclaim, which is the research. If the research proved it works, it's in there. If the research proved it doesn't, it's not. So I certify a lot of coaches, the best of the best work within PBT. And they teach daily classes. They're all certified in moving you through the stages, and they each specialize in anything that can happen when you've been betrayed. So, divorce and separation, or reconciliation and forgiveness, mindset, self growth, getting your nervous system regulated, all of it. So, live daily classes and meeting privately with coaches and group sessions with me, and a community that lifts and inspires instead of keeping you stuck. Again, if the research proved it works, it's in there.
Yeah, that's so good. It's so good. And yes, it's so easy to navigate. It's so
Mhm.
well done. You just go on there and get lost, and learn and figure out where you are in life. I highly encourage you to do that.
Thank you. And it's numbered according to you. As you come into the community, you self-assess. We have a 1 minute way so you know what stage you're in. And then every class and everything is numbered according to stages. So if you're in stage 2, you do all the stage 2 stuff until you move to stage 3. Then you do all the stage 3 stuff. So you're in there for 3 months to predictably move through the stages.
Yeah, man, that's so good. Do you ever have people that get into stage 4 and then happily into stage 5, but get into stage 4 and go, why didn't I do this sooner? What was I thinking? And is that an issue? Like, does that hold them back at all or hurt them? Like the
Yeah.
pain of losing time kind of thing?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's common because they say, "Oh my gosh, I spent 30 years, 30 years being angry and staying stuck." And what I do if I'm working with them personally in our transform program, or if someone is reaching out with something like this on a group call, I let them know, okay, but now that you know, do you want it to be 31 years and 32 years? I remember actually taking a calculator out with a man in our program, and it had been 40 years that he's been struggling with his betrayal. And so this was on a group call, and I said, okay, we're going to do some numbers here. And I said, how many times a day are you angry and upset about your betrayal? And he said, I don't know, it was like between 5 and 10. And then we said, okay, for how long? And he said, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, a half hour. So we did that. And I said, how long has it been? 40 years. And we did the math. And I remember, I don't remember the exact numbers, but it turned into something like 5 years of nothing but ruminating over his experience. So I said to him, have you, in any one of those times, have you come out of it with any insight, awareness, nugget of, oh, I see things clearly now? No. So you've spent 5 years essentially like in a cave, right, where not one good thing has come from it, except, negatives of illness, symptoms, because your body can't help but respond. So do you want to keep that going?
Yeah. 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 Great response. Great response. You hear too, like just yesterday, I was talking to somebody who said that there's timing for everything, right? And if you look at yesterday and go, well, why didn't I do this sooner or why whatever? Maybe it wasn't the timing. Maybe you weren't really ready for it. And now you're ready to receive it. And now you're ready to hear it. And so leave any regret behind that shouldn't play a role. Just be excited about this new you, this new future.
Exactly. We had a beautiful woman in our community in her mid 60s, and I'll never forget how she said, oh my gosh, he was a cone. And I was like, what the heck are you saying? And because she was stuck in this old relationship, stage 3, for such a long time. And I said, cone, what do you mean? She goes, have you ever driven and you're in a parking lot and there's a cone in a spot and you can't park there? And she said, he was a cone. I couldn't park in this beautiful new space so that I could go into this amazing, store or whatever, because there was a cone there. And now the cone is gone. And she
I
met
love
and
that.
married a beautiful, beautiful man. And they had such an incredible next chapter because she removed the cone.
Wow. Wow. I love the cone. I'm going to use the cone. That is so good. Well, thank you. I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you from all of us for being here, for just dropping all this incredible wisdom and giving people a path, all the hours. And I can't even imagine the number of hours and hours and hours you put into this discovery. So we don't have to discover it. All we need to do is know you. And so again, your website is
the PBT, as in post betrayal transformation, the pbtinstitute.com.
There you go. And go to it. And of course, it'll be in show notes and whatever. Pass this episode on to people. People need to hear this and, subscribe to my channel, but pass this episode on to anyone who has been hurt, or anyone, really, it's just such a good thing to hear so that people can help other people as well. So again, thank you so much for being here. I just so appreciate your work. And thank you all for joining us today. And I just pray that you keep your heart open and live your love loud.